Well, good morning. This is the session on outsourcing IT. My name is Brian Quigley. I'm a librarian at the University of Texas. I'm also the administrative contact on two outsourcing contracts that we have with our main computation center. And this morning I'd like to talk about an environment where many of our IT functions are outsourced to other organizations on campus. These are things that might traditionally be done in-house in the law school. And about some of the factors that we considered in doing this. And it really isn't just about money. There's many other determining factors that go into making these decisions. Some of the positive and negative aspects of doing outsourcing, and why you might eventually want to do this, or why you might leave here thinking we're absolutely crazy. And believe me, there are days when I think that. We'll talk a little bit first about the setting. It's a fairly large law school. We have no evening or part-time program. Enrollment fluctuates between 1,450 and 1,500 students. I guess our enrollment, according to the ABA stats, among full-time programs only is just second, following that other law school across the river in Cambridge. And we have pretty much a complete resident student body. There are virtually no commuters coming in. We have 90 full-time faculty, 100 adjuncts and clinicians, and about 160 staff members, and that includes about 40 full-time library staff as well. We have a fairly active CLE program, and those folks have some what we refer to as non-standard computing needs. We have a law school foundation that administers our endowments, again, non-standard computing needs, and about a half a dozen clinical programs, and they've got their own non-standard computing needs. Now, most of the physical plant dates from the 1950s, and sometimes I think the cabling is just about as old as that. And the exceptions are the library, which was built in 1980, and a trial advocacy center that was completed last year and really is state-of-the-art as far as technology goes. Now, the law school is located on a very large campus. We've got about between 48,000 and 50 students on a single campus, and we're in a three-way tie with Minnesota and Ohio State for the largest student body on a single campus, and it's a race I don't think anybody really wants to win. We've also got 13,000 faculty and staff on campus. Now, what this means really, besides the fact that parking is absolute hell, is that we have access to a huge range of services on campus that some smaller schools might not have access to. Now, the people that we do business with are really in a state of flux right now. University computing has always been done in a distributed environment until last year when the president decided it was time to consolidate all of the different service providers into a single organization and hire a CIO at the VP level. And we now have as it was once explained to me, information technology services. And under that rubric, administrative computing services, telecommunication services, and academic computing services now all report to a single VP. Administrative computing handles most of the administrative applications, fiscal, student resources, and human resources. Telecom handles cabling and network support, and of course telephone services. And academic computing handles instructional support, web design, web support, and departmental services. And academic computing are really the people that we have our contracts with. Now, not all colleges on campus outsource to any extent, and no one does it to the extent that we do that I'm aware of. We have a business school at UT, and it is really the only other large professional school on campus. We don't have a med school. And they went in the completely opposite direction. They decided to do absolutely everything in-house, and they probably, including student computing support, so the students' personal machines are actually supported by business school personnel. And I believe they have an IT staff of something like 40 full-time people. Now, back to the law school. It's a very large business school. And the law school, well, the first of our two contracts is for law school support. And what this calls for is for academic computing services to support approximately 325 desktops and laptops. First, let me give you a little bit of the history of how all this developed. This was the first departmental support contract for administrative computing. Way back in 1992, the dean decided to retire our WANG system, which was the only network in the law school, and replace it with a token ring. We had one person who was our WANG support person. Now, when the decision was made to bring up a token ring, that individual was a little overwhelmed, and given the 6-month time frame that the dean imposed on the law school for getting the token ring up and running, he thought it might be best to bring in outside people and see if we could get this done on schedule with outside help. So he approached academic computing about on-site management for the token ring and actually having academic computing staff who would not be law school employees have offices in the law school, take over setting up the network, deploying the PCs, and all of the ancillary functions. So what they do is they handle all hardware support for the law school, for the faculty, for the staff, for the library staff, for student organizations, and for the law reviews. And I think we have, on paper, about a dozen law reviews, probably 8 of which have actually published an issue, but they still have offices, and they still have computers, and they still need support. They also do our server support, take care of our backups. We run our own email system. We're in the process of bringing up a FileMaker Pro server to serve out databases throughout the law school. We have a Mac server, we have a PC server, and then the library has its own server. So they're running about 5 servers for us. They take care of all of our account administration, except for accounts that are on university servers, and I manage those. They run our network security and actually do quite a good job with it, and run all of our virus detection programs. Software support really consists of very little more than doing installations and problem resolutions. We don't have any kind of software training program. People are generally left on their own. If we do have a faculty member who, because of a publishing contract, needs to learn WordPerfect, they will go in and do some hand-holding, but it's not really a very extensive program. They take care of our inventory control, and they're also in charge of speccing out new hardware, new software. They make those recommendations to me, I approve them, and then actually place the orders. And there is a staff of 5 FTEs who do this, and it generally is broken down into we have an on-site supervisor. He's really in charge of network administration and the larger picture issues, the ones that really affect network integrity, operability. And the rest of the guys aren't formally assigned these duties, but it's kind of shaken down that way based on their own inclinations or our needs. We have a Mac guy, we have a PC guy, we have the new guy who gets to do all of the problem installations. And we are in the process of hiring an application specialist who is actually supposed to be the on-site trainer. This is supposed to be the person who is going to go around to the individual offices as we're rolling out Win2K machines. They will explain Windows 2000 to the users, and they will have help the Mac people make the transition over into a Windows environment as we try to standardize our hardware platforms. Now, this in the past had been paid from a variety of line items. There was no dedicated line item for either hardware or software or this contract, and we have somehow managed to cobble enough money together to pay academic computing every year on time. Generally, this is coming out of the dean's discretionary funds, and he has, fortunately, extremely deep pockets. But beginning next year, we're imposing an IT fee on the students of $10 per semester credit hour, and that is actually going to fund this contract. Next year, we're looking at a $280,000 tab for this, and this is going up from $247,000 last year due to the addition of one additional person. The second contract we have with academic computing is for student computer lab support. This dates from back in '98. Back in those days, Austin was an extremely hot tech market. We couldn't keep anybody employed for longer than 4 months, it seemed, who had any technical skills whatsoever. The lab is physically located in the library. It used to be run by library staff. At one point, actually when we got to the point where we had 4 lab directors in 1 year, 4 different ways of administering the lab, we decided enough is enough and we've got to do something about this. Again, we had a funding problem. We never had enough money to put the lab machines on any kind of a upgrade cycle. And we basically wanted to get out of the accounting business as far as printing and providing remote access to students, which used to be completely internal function in the law school. We were frankly losing our shirts on this because a lot of the accounting input would be done by work-study employees who were a little preoccupied with things besides inputting financial accounting information correctly. So back in '98, we doubled the lab fee to $134 a semester. Every student, regardless of the number of credit hours, pays that $134 a semester. We signed a contract with Assets for lab management, and they have actually had other contracts for this in place, running other departmental labs since about '93 or '94. And some of the other colleges, fine arts, liberal arts, all of their labs are actually administered by Assets and have been for a number of years. And we started upgrading. And what the contract calls for is support of 82 desktops in the lab. That includes 26 PCs in a teaching facility. Overall, the contract, I think, has been a real success. We've seen our lab logins increase by a third since '98, and this is despite the fact that anecdotal evidence indicates that laptop ownership in the law school has probably quadrupled since '98. Most of the incoming students are coming in with their own machines, but people are still using the desktops in the lab. Some months we'll have 11,000 logins. Some days we'll have 1,200 logins. So it's a very busy place. The students, I think, are generally happy with the services that are provided. The major complaints I get are about staplers and hole punchers, and that's certainly much better than hearing about the crummy machines we have to offer. The contract also calls for them to support a single adaptive technology station. It's nothing terribly fancy. We've got drag and dictate installed on it. We've got magic screen magnification software. We're looking at a couple of other programs. They've also supported our library kiosks, our web OPAC stations, and did quite a nice job of locking those machines down. We've also got 3 dedicated email stations down on the main floor of the library where students can run in and do quick email checks, and those machines are also covered under the contract. The Staffing consists of a full-time facility supervisor. We've been lucky in the last few years. We've had lab proctors who've graduated for whatever reason. They can't find a job. They don't want to leave Austin. They decide to stay on. We've hired these people on. Well, not we, since we don't do the hiring, but Academic Computing has hired these individuals on to be our full-time lab supervisors. The proctors are undergraduates for the most part. They've all done service in the really big undergraduate computer lab, so we don't get any people who are green over in the law library. It is considered to be a promotion to be assigned to the law school for some strange reason I've never been able to figure out. The techs take care of all of the they take care of the server. They take care of any of the glitch reports that we enter into an online system. And they're drawn from a pool of, I believe, 5 full-time techs that work in lab operations. So they're assigned not just to the law library, they're assigned to other labs that are being administered by Academic Computing across campus. We do not support student machines, except for some help in getting the students to configure their Ethernet cards for our public Ethernet ports, and that's very minimal support. It's just trying to get them connected. And for this, we pay $127,000 a year. And that's funded, as I said, from this student computer lab fee. So the students are paying 2 tech fees, or will be next year. The IT fee that will basically support staff computing, and the student computer lab fee for the lab. So all in all, we're worth about $400,000 to Academic Computing. You would think they'd be nicer to us, but we've got some odds and ends contracts too. We contract with an organization called Team Web, which is also part of Academic Computing. Our website is actually running on one of the Unix boxes that's located over in the main computing area. They charge us $600 a year, and that covers disk storage and a virtual domain name hosting for the law.utexas.edu address.
Did you buy the machine?
No, we didn't. No. They also guarantee us 99.8% uptime, and they're pretty faithful about that. The bulk of the money that we pay for web hosting isn't really for disk storage and backup. It's for the virtual domain name hosting. We used to run our own web server. After 2 hard disk crashes, one of which resulted in completely lost website, the backups weren't working right. Thought it was time to do something about that too. So back in '98, we switched over to having our site hosted on Team Web.
Was that $600 a year?
$600 a year, right.
Could you tell us what was your lab fee again? I didn't catch
The lab fee was $134 a semester. It's just a flat fee.
Great.
Yes.
In contrast, do you know what the tuition is? It just gives an idea of what is it the students are paying should they get their extent out.
The students, we didn't have a peep out of them when we imposed any of these fees. We're probably one of the cheapest law schools in the country. I believe annual tuition's around the $8,000 range. So they know they're getting a good deal. We never lose an opportunity to tell them what a good deal they're getting.
Is that out of state?
That's in state. But the legislature tells us how many out-of-staters we can enroll, which is, I believe, no more than 15% of the student body can be out-of-staters. So we tell them about Virginia, and we tell them about Michigan and what other state schools are charging, and they're very happy that we're imposing these fees.
And do you have a fee for printing in the lab, or do they charge a fee for printing in the lab?
Printing used to, we have no free printing whatsoever. We used to give them a $20 credit at the beginning of the semester back when the library was administering the lab. When we moved over to Academic Computing running the lab, we got out of the printing business completely. What happens is that when a student enrolls in the university, there is what's called an individually funded account that is generated off their registrar records. It's got a major code in it, so it allows us to download those files onto our local server. So it's only law school students who are downloaded onto the server, and they're the only ones authorized to use the lab. Now, when they log in, any printing done under that login is billed to that account. So the print jobs are sent through a central server that's tied into the university's accounting system. So we are 100% out of the printing business. If they mistakenly redirect a 100-page Westlaw printout to one of the lab printers, well, we tell them to go talk to the main building because we have nothing to do with this whatsoever.
How much per page?
10 cents. Other contract jobs include, we have them develop an image for our loaner laptops. We've got 3 laptops that we check out to students on a 24-hour basis. They're allowed to take them out of the building. It's been such a successful program, we're going to buy another 3 this summer. We had them develop the image, burn the image onto a CD. Anytime that a student returns a laptop, we just ghost the laptop, and it's back in operation. And the catalog kiosk, when we were bringing up the library web catalog machines, we had them develop a kiosk image for the catalog machines. Yes?
In addition to that lab fee, what did you say your IT fee was going to be?
IT fee, $10 a semester credit hour.
Per credit hour.
Per credit hour. So that's going to, projected revenue off that's going to be about $450,000 a year.
And every student has to pay that? Whether
Every student has to pay that.
IT or not?
Exactly. These are mandatory fees. We're also attempting to diversify our outsourcing. I've been talking to the folks over at the main library about bringing up a proxy server for some of our electronic subscriptions. Haven't gotten real far yet, but I'm hoping that this summer we may actually see some activity in that. But basically all of our eggs are in one basket right now. Now, as is the case with most things, there's a good side and there's a bad side. Well, let's start with the good side. First thing is, we don't have to do it. We don't have to hire the people. We don't have to fire the people. We don't have to provide them career paths. When after they get some training on your dime, they're just going to leave anyway. So we're just completely out of that personnel business altogether. We don't have to keep up with tech training. We don't have to keep up with security issues or new viruses. And we don't have to keep up with account administration except for, as I mentioned, the university server accounts. So they take care of all of the mail accounts and all of the network accounts, both in the lab and for the staff. This also gives us an opportunity to take advantage of the economies of scale on campus. We are a lot more integrated into the campus IT structure and are made aware of campus initiatives more readily than we would be if we were running our own show. I don't know whether Texas is an unusual case, but law schools have sometimes had a tendency to be a little bit isolated from the main campus, regardless of whether you're on the main campus physically or you're off-site. You do have a tendency to get lost in the shuffle sometimes because you're the law school. As an example, the campus, ITS recently made an announcement that they will be moving to Active Directory for authentication and all secure services on campus. Well, I don't have to worry about trying to figure out how to integrate Active Directory in with NetWare. Our people, our law school people will take care of doing all of that. It also affords us 24/7 coverage. And no matter what happens, we get the adequate human resources to fix the problem. A couple years ago, we had a major flood in the law school. One of the sprinkler head valves broke on a Saturday night, about 2 o'clock in the morning. Sunday morning, there was about 6 inches of water on the main floor in the administrative areas in the law school. Within an hour, we had 15 people on site, drying out computers, taking care of all of the different problems that needed to be taken care of, backing up servers. We had another instance where when we finally got enough money together to do a major hardware rollout in the lab, we had 65 machines ghosted and rolled out in 2 days, and that couldn't have been done with on-site staff. If a lab proctor doesn't show up on a Sunday morning, we get one from another lab within an hour. That's actually written into the contract. So we've got very deep coverage on whatever's going to happen. We can take advantage of the push towards hardware and software standardization on campus. We deploy, for the most part, only hardware and software that has been very thoroughly tested off-site. Other people can be bleeding edge. I'm not terribly interested in that. I want a network that's going to be up and running, and faculty and students who are going to be happy with being able to access what they need to access. And it's really proven to be a very stable environment. We've had very, very little downtime. We're only buying a few types of toner cartridges now instead of 20 or 30 different kinds. And we're trying to put everything on a set upgrades cycle and eventually reduce the number of images that we have to support. And finally, it's predictable. It's a very predictable environment. From a financial standpoint, these are really very easy operations to manage. There are very, very few surprises that happen during the year. We've got 2 contracts. We've got 2 invoices. We process those, and that's pretty much it for the year. Annual increases have been generally in the 3 to 5% range. I build that in as far as budgeting goes on a yearly basis. Some years the cost actually goes down. There was a reorganization in the lab department, the lab support department last year, where our tech support was reduced from a 0.5 FTE down to a 0.25 FTE, and we actually saved $20 or $30 on account of that. Then there's the bad stuff. Because we do place a great deal of environment on uptime, a great deal of emphasis on uptime, and because I think it is the mindset of academic computing that they're not terribly interested in bringing out the latest and greatest in a production environment, we've seen problems with them being reluctant to adapt new technologies. Most of the machines in the law school are still running Windows 95. The first Win2K machines were rolled out this spring after a great deal of haggling between me and the law school support staff about how we have to do this eventually and why not now. We're still running NetWare 3.1.2. Yeah. If your machine is 3 years old and it hasn't broken, you probably got a 3-year-old browser on your machine. We're running Eudora 3.0 as the standard email program, and the support staff in the law school have been extremely reluctant to make exceptions regarding non-standard hardware and software. Every single implementation that is not considered to be a standard one is a battle. And let's face it, these people are institutional outsiders. They don't work for you. They work for academic computing. They don't go to the dean's staff lunches. They're not eligible for excellence awards. You're not their boss, somebody else is. And it's hard for them, I think, to take the big picture view in the law school. It's more focused on what is academic computing doing rather than what is the law school doing as far as long-range goals. Although I can say that about some of the staff members in the law school. We occasionally have problems with defining areas of responsibility. Some things are just naturally falling into a gray area. Administrative, financial type issues. We do not have a very good software inventory, and we've been negotiating back and forth. I mean, I've only been the administrative contact on the law school contract since January, so some of these problems I'm inheriting. And one of the problems is the inventories are basically outdated, and their perspective is, well, if it's in such bad shape, why don't you do it? Since you're buying the software, my perspective is, you're installing the software, why don't you do it? And same goes with the hardware inventory. Things like orders for drops in the building. Okay, well, they have to tell me where the drop goes. I have to come up with the account to pay for the drop. And surplusing equipment. You know, we don't have any kind of an inventory of our surplus equipment, and we're trying to get rid of a lot of it, actually send it to an off-site surplus storage area. Again, we don't really have a very good inventory. Communications. Can be difficult to really maintain open communications with, what are in fact contract labor. I think I have to make a great deal of effort to make sure I know what's going on with these guys, what's going on with academic computing, make sure that I present the law school's perspective, the student lab perspective to them effectively. I have weekly meetings with the law school people. I have monthly meetings with the lab people. But again, it's a problem just trying to stay plugged into the campus buzz. And overall, I think it works for us. Actually, I thought about doing a final slide called the ugly, but I thought that might be a little bit too subjective for this presentation. But what we're doing now isn't written into stone. As I said, we're looking at other possibilities for outsourcing. But overall, I think it's been a pretty positive experience for us. So, questions?
You mentioned there's a contract of $600 per year, and that is for
web hosting.
Web hosting.
Right.
And the second contract is how much a year?
For the student lab, it's $127,000 a year. Yes.
How many? Are you the only computer person in the law school?
That works for the law school?
That works for the law school.
No, we actually have a department that does web services, who actually do the content for the website, and they do data processing. They actually manipulate student records and maintain those types of services. Other than that, yes.
How many people are in that department?
4.
Okay.
Stunning, isn't it?
You mean too many people or not enough?
Just a different
model.
model.
Sorry, John.
Go ahead.
I'm just having a hard time realizing how, we have 2 people, we have 750 students, and I think with our salaries and all of our benefits combined, we're a heck of a lot less than, $400,000 a year, and I just am sort of in this, you have, student computing fees that students pay $70 a semester. We don't receive that money. It goes to the computing services group already. So we're not channeling that money in, raising money to turn around and then spend back out. It just seems a little surprising that I guess if you have the money and you don't want to do it.
We've got the money and we don't want to do it.
It just seems like it could be done cheaper.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we'll probably will be looking at private contracting sometime in the future. Yes.
What about your internet access and the costs associated with that, and also infrastructure costs in terms of upgrading your network and things like that?
That's all handled by a group called Network Operations. It is part of Information Technology Services. We cannot opt out of doing business with them. They rule the network. What we can do is we can tell them, I want to upgrade a closet. They will say, okay, you need to buy this, and you need to give me an account number I can charge this to, and then they come in and they do the actual installations. But that is not, that's not an optional service. That's mandatory across campus.
And internet access?
Internet access, they take care of all of that. Since we're on campus, we're just part of the campus backbone. No fee. Yes.
Do you purchase your own desktop system? I know you said you
Yes, we do.
servers, but you purchase all your
Yeah.
own.
I put together the preliminary configuration. I run that through either the lab people or the law school people. You know, we go back and forth on a couple of little issues. I actually place the orders. Yes.
What about specialized applications for the specific departments? For example, admissions usually has specialized applications.
It's all mainframe based in our school.
Sorry?
It's mainframe based at Texas, so it's really not considered a special application, and it's not covered under the contract.
Okay. So in the sense that they're having, that would be something that you would be troubleshooting and helping with vendors make that application work for the admissions or career services?
Yes, career services, that's definitely the case.
What about, because you mentioned that in the department of doing web services, what about, and you were mentioning that, that as far as the bad, slow adaptation of new technology, because oftentimes, particularly web services, you're trying to utilize a lot of different new application tools to improve your website, and so what happens if those tools can't run?
We've actually had an incident like that just this last week where we were trying to figure out a way to serve up FileMaker Pro databases on a Cold Fusion server. Sorry. Yeah, it's their way or no way, I'm afraid, on some things.
But you could but you still have an option that even though that if you wanted to set up a separate independent server, you
Yes.
could actually do that.
Yes.
But then you would be responsible for the maintenance and,
Yes.
and the backups on that particular.
And we may
server.
actually go that route. Yes.
Do you have control over what your capital budget is? Or is that, you mentioned you have to find an account to charge for
Right.
infrastructure costs and stuff. How's that
Things will be a
done?
lot better when the new fee goes into effect next year. It's really been catch as catch can. Whatever account has money in it, basically. Since we don't really have line items for capital expenditures for hardware upgrades, which is part of the reason why things tended to fall apart over the years. In the future, that will all be charged to the IT budget.
Do you have an arrangement with your contractors regarding how much new hardware they're willing to roll out in a particular year?
No. We tell them.
Whatever you shove on them, they have
Yes,
to deal with.
yes. We tell them, okay, we're converting career services over from a Mac platform to a PC platform, and it's got to be done by the end of X month, and they just do it.
Right. Then next year they charge you a lot more.
No,
Really?
no.
Are there any IT functions that you don't outsource?
Again, web content and anything that has to do with student records that's running off the mainframe, those are all done in-house.
And everything else?
Pretty much everything else, right? Yes.
But I'm tying this into, I think, a lecture that another person did from the web department yesterday. The web design and all that stuff is outsourced as well. So the content is...
Content is done in-house, yes. Thank you. Oops, sorry.
Thanks for remembering.
Hi, my name's Ed Raliski, and I'm from Wake Forest, and Texas is equally big, we're equally small. Our total enrollment is all of 3,800 people, graduate and undergraduate, and the law school is right around 440 to 450 people. With Brian concentrated on inside outsourcing, I'm going to look at outside outsourcing as something I really call strategic partnering. Our dean very happily points out that we have the second lowest private school law school tuition in the country, and he wants to keep it that way. So we're seeing an increasing pressure to keep our tuition lower, while at the same time it restricts our operating budgets. And for the third year in a row, I am dealing with a totally flat, zero growth operating budget. And we've got to find better and smarter ways to do things. It boils down to the cost of implementing the technology, upgrading existing technology, even maintaining it, and the staff development cost as well. The reality of a zero growth budget is you end up with less. Salaries increased. There's the increased cost of benefits that I have no control over and I have to pay. The maintenance cost, membership cost, all must be funded out of the same pool. So as everything increases, I have left money to go however you divide the pie. In effect, we're all being asked to do more with less. And as the old saying goes, we've all done so much for so long with nothing that we're now qualified to do everything with nothing. And days that I feel like that. And skim through that so we can try and catch up to some of the things we've really been able to do that have saved us some money. And one of the first ones is the help desk. Shortly after coming to law school from the medical school 3 years ago, is the person who was responsible for the help desk moved on. Their husband graduated and off they went. And we looked at the cost of doing this and what this person was supposed to do. Not only did we run the help desk, but they were also supposed to offer the expert assistance. If someone had a word perfect or a word question, a professor needed all his footnotes reformatted. This was the person to go to. And many times than not, it was not something we were able to do right away. There was a significant lag. And that was one of the big directives given to me, is that they wanted to see 80 or 90% of the calls to the help desk handled on that call. So we started looking at how we could partner and do some of this. And we went to some traditional computer education sources. And the cost was actually going to be significantly more than the cost of the FTE. And just at a chance meeting at a lunch, I ran into a gentleman who runs his own computer-based education class. And he was lamenting that he had these people but couldn't keep them employed enough. And I said, well, I have a need for employers, but I can't find it. So we came together and found a match where he is able to supplement the income of his instructors by having them man our help desk every day of the week. And we also get a greatly reduced fee for that. We're not paying some of the other fees. We found that in getting it together, we saved a third of the contract just in the FTE. We pay no benefits. And we have no training costs associated with this FTE. When you have someone on the help desk, you always have to send them to the latest Microsoft class or the latest WordPerfect class or something. They've got to keep their skill set ahead of the curve so they can anticipate and work on the questions. Well, here's a company that takes care of doing this education. So they're always having their own internal training, and it provides benefits that we get to learn it as well. And on their side, they get to try out their new classes. As they develop a class, they offer an out-of-the-bag lunch lecture series twice a week. And they get to try out various parts of the thing, and we fill out little survey sheets and give them the feedback they need before they actually go out and sell it to one of the major banks in the area or something like that. So it's been very good for both parties involved here, and we've saved the money and increased our level of support. And not only do we have 80%, but we have 94% of our calls to the help desk answered at the time of the inquiry. So our level of service has gone way up, where we were doing only 30 or 40%. And that has done wonders for our reputation, not only in the law school, but in the university. The second area is service support. We had a bid from our inside group, and We also shopped it a little bit and went with some outside groups. And what we have is our servers are still in the law school. We have a Microsoft certified engineer on our site 4 hours a week, every week. It's usually Thursday afternoons. They remotely manage the site. There's not only access through the remote console across the internet, but they have 2 modems in there so they can get in if things are really bad. I get a notebook every month of a comprehensive report that gives me every minutiae of detail about the server environment, where disk space is going, what tends to be a critical factor, what I need to be looking forward to. Maybe it's time to start planning about a disk upgrade to these things. We've seen growth. Things that we're never able to do as a small department. He talks about 2 people. We're 2 people as well. And it's just things we can't have. The downside is I have an operations manual, and we have to do everything by the book. They put in different backup systems, so if there's a failure, there's an icon on everybody's desktop now. They just click that icon, schedule their own restore, it kicks in and goes off the tape. We don't have to worry about a call coming in saying, I just deleted this chapter of this book, I need it restored from whatever date. They can go in and do it themselves, and it has really worked quite well. I don't have an MCSE on my staff. We haven't been able to hire one, given the salary configuration we have. I have a contract, and that contract's $1,000 a month. We have 4 servers, and they give us discounts on projects, being we are a paid contractual basis. One we're planning on now is the upgrade to Server 2000 from NT4, and all the implications that go along with that. So it's been a great savings for us. It's also been good for us in that we're getting more information out of it than we ever had hoped to have. I have learned on service contracts to renegotiate everything. Do not take anything they give you. Just tell them it's unacceptable. We need to do a little bit better. And you can find out a lot. We just got done renegotiating our service contract on our UPS for our computer labs and server farm. They proposed a 3-year contract at $12,000 a year, which was about a 25% increase over our current 3-year contract. We basically went to them and said, I can't afford that growth. Anything that has gone over 10% is subject to review by the Dean's Committee right now. And they said, well, let's get rid of the contract. And when I told them that, I said, well, we can work out something. And the only thing they did was change our frequency of service calls. They used to do preventive maintenance on the UPS every 3 months. They changed it to every 4 months, so they visit us 3 times a year. It dropped it to $9,000. I'm paying less now than I did a year ago. We buy all our personal computers with a 3-year service contract from the manufacturer, and we replace it in the 36th month, so the computers are never out of contract. It's an educational facility. You get all kinds of great deals. If you go and buy it off the web, you see it's $99. Well, we pay $79, and that includes on-site for the 3 years. So it's really cheap. You can really do well in terms of that. Audiovisual contract for support of all the equipment that we have here, a lot of this. We were paying for a business hours contract, 9 to 5. Well, we looked at our time grid of the classrooms, and they were used. And outside of the 8 o'clock hour, they were generally used from 9 to 4. And there was very little time except for the 10 minutes between classes. So if something failed, there was little we could do to actually fix it. We'd just bring in a circumvention for the day. We changed our service contract to the non-prime time, the 3 to 9 o'clock shift, 3 in the afternoon to 9 o'clock in the evening. They can do this as part of their mop-up work at the end of the day, or if they've got a spare crew, and do that. Immediate savings. They cut the contract cost by 50%. So it went real well. You can force the issue a little bit and set up competitive bids. This year's personal computers. We printed every spec sheet from every website that sold computers. Dell, Gateway, Compaq, IBM, it didn't matter. We set what we wanted them to be. And when we met with our academic sales rep, We said, point blank, here's what you sell it to me off the web. Here's what I need. How good of a price can I get? And we set up basically a machine that we knew that we were looking somewhere around $1,100, $1,200 off the web prices. We ended up buying for $780 a piece. Don't be afraid to take a hard-nosed attitude with them. Everything is negotiable in the business world. And academics, we've always done well in that we've had such great discounts. And a lot of times we've just accepted them and said, gee, this is great. But now we're having to force the issue and say, can we do better? If I've got to deal with the same amount of capital money as well, then I've got to do it.
How many machines per year are you guaranteed?
At the least, we do 80 machines a year, at the most 140. So it's a good enough block that someone's interested in the money. It's not nickel and dime stuff, but compared to the rest of the university. We also are starting to look at outsourcing as a source of revenue for us. We have video conferencing centers. We have registered them with AT&T, Sprint, and GTE as public meeting rooms, where you can generate revenue for their use at $100 an hour. It may not make a lot of money, it may not make us any money, but at least we're going to try. I tried to get through this to keep us back on schedule, and I thank everybody for listening. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to address them or get into more specifics, but I tried to keep it short and sweet here.
So is the law school or the university made the decision to be more outsourced than insourced?
That's been our decision to do more outsourced than insourced, but we're starting to see the university clamp down. We were just talking beforehand that electronic mail, the financial bean counters looked at the fact that the medical school, the law school, the undergraduate school, the divinity school, the graduate program, all had their own mail server. Everybody had their own mail program. They said, enough. We're buying a server, we're buying an email package, this is what it is, and we're going to charge you for it. Granted, it's cheap. This first year, they're charging us $1 a user per month. But who knows what's going to happen down the road when they've got to put in a server. But no longer are they looking at every institution buying a server, paying a license fee, paying a maintenance fee. It's all one happy university now.
What was the mail server? What companies?
It's Netscape.
Netscape, not Exchange.
No. We've had a lot of unusual experiences in the business school with Exchange and viruses, so no desire to go to Exchange.
Is that true? Is there a general move away from Microsoft because of their new licensing model? That's people are going to have to start saying maybe we got to look at something else because the software costs are too insane.
Most educational institutions already do that licensing for years now, though. I mean, like Pepperdine, we've had a general contract with Microsoft. They give us whatever their new software is, and we have licenses all over the university, paid centrally.
Right.
So essentially, they're just expanding the package a lot of us have probably already been using to other businesses that can't afford it as much as us because we have educational discounts.
Is anybody not in that situation?
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes it's hard to work out that deal. Case Western Reserve University right now has been trying for years to work out a deal with Microsoft on that, and it's just never happened. Whereas the state schools throughout Ohio have worked out that deal and get an amazing rate. But being a private school, we just have not had luck.
It was a long, painful process for us, but we got there about 2 years ago. And the cost savings are phenomenal on the entire academic suite. But it's narrowing down their definition versus of an FTE versus ours, and what's full-time, what's part-time, and getting the accurate counts and reconciling it that drove us crazy for 3 or 4 months.
Do you charge your students computer fees or anything like that?
There are no fees at all at Wake Forest. We used to have a computing fee of $25 a year to cover printing cost, and we had a revolt, and that $25 fee was reversed, and there are no others.
And that was unlimited printing?
It is still unlimited printing, but that will change. Last year, we had a student body of 450 print close to 2 million pages. Nobody uses the Westlaw and Lexis printers. It's too slow. I have a storeroom that has well over 100 toner cartridges from Westlaw and Lexis each, and probably close to 250,000 pages of paper from each. that just haven't been used. It just keeps coming in. Bring a truck and pick it up.
Costs more to ship.
I know, that's the unfortunate. We tell them to stop, and they'll stop for 3 or 4 months, and then all of a sudden, you didn't receive any of this for 4 months, and we get the whole shipment anyway. So it goes on and on. Yes, sir.
You spoke earlier about 80 new computers each year. Is that for the students or for the faculty?
We have a computer lab very similar in size. We have 78 computers in the student lab. Every faculty staff member has their own computer. There are 26 more computers in the lab. There are the servers. There's the computers in CLE, but the students themselves do not get a computer. But we do find that 90-some-odd% of them come in with a laptop. And producing a CD-ROM that has all the configuration information on it and how to get yourself set up for the law school network, how to define yourself to the printers, and go from there. We also make all of the education booklets that our help desk outsourcer creates in terms of how to do better presentations in PowerPoint, how to use Word Perfect, how to use Word. They get access to all those educational materials on the CD-ROM up front.
Countless.
Yes.
What do you do for internet services? What about the networking?
Internet services, were in a very unique situation. Wake Forest is one of the development sites for Internet 2. And we have one of the most unusual configurations in the country. Ours is all entirely ATM-based. And we are actually paid to use the Internet. So.
And network infrastructure?
That is central maintained by the university. It's viewed in terms of capital on a 3 or 4 year rolling. They're going to come through and do an upgrade, and there's an assessment, and that's generally handled out of the dean's discretionary funds.
Including troubleshooting problems?
They are very active and proactive about troubleshooting the network. They have a tremendous network operations center that actively diagnoses all the hardware, and most of the time I get the call that the internet connection's down or something's not working before I get a call into the help desk. They are that good about it. So it's worked well. We are the only school at Wake Forest that does not issue our students laptops out to begin with when they arrive. So all that networking infrastructure was put in anticipation of the undergraduate campus and the 3,000 laptops that they have out there.
Obvious question, why not? Why isn't the law school
The faculty has not deemed it necessary yet as part of their instruction that a computer is needed.
Will they?
Not probably in the next 2 to 3 years. The last faculty vote was probably 4-1 against it.
Luddites.
We've been through this, John, unfortunately.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.